This is a commission painting of downtown Northampton, several shops on Main Street. As you can see, I began with burnt sienna wash, and then I block in the buildings. There's 3 buildings in this painting. They're similar in architecture, but different in color. As I work the block in, I decided not to just blacken in the windows completely on the first step. I started adding various shades of reflective qualities or shades. Some of the windows have curtains, etc. And as I add those in, I just added detail as well. There's actually 3 stores in the picture, in the painting, but 2 that are visible are Synergy on the left and Shop Therapy on the right. The center shop is kind of buried behind a tree and a lamp, so you really don't see it. And as usual with the buildings, I use my mouse stick a lot to, well, aside from supporting my hand, you can see I'm using that brush against the side of the mouse stick to create my lines for the windows, the tops of the building sides. I just think that perfect lines add to the realism of the scenery, especially when you're doing buildings of any type. This is based on a photo I took Thanksgiving Day around 3:30 in the afternoon, so the sun's hanging low in the sky, coming from the left. So you see shade and shadows off the windows and everything kind of leaning towards the right side. The buildings themselves were in the shade, with the sun just hitting the Synergy awning, the sidewalk, and the street. Now here on the buildings, to give an indication of a brick look, I'm just dabbing in a darker shade of the particular building diagonally. And by doing it diagonally, I kind of stagger my marks so that it has the same indication that you see in bricks. Here I'm starting to add, the buildings have cement ledges and little crowns on the top on this building on the right. And eventually you'll see me shade and shadow to the right of those ledges and crowns because of the sun leaning towards that side. This will eventually give it that 3D depth, the shading. And Shop Therapy has a lot of banners, flags, and the sign itself. It's a rainbow of colors, so it brightens up the entire picture. The day I took this picture was Thanksgiving, and the shops were closed, and so there's nothing in the window fronts. But I went back at a later date and took some photos of the storefronts when they were open so that I could indicate detail in the shop windows itself, which you see I'm doing here. A few mannequins and knickknacks and brush strokes that indicate there's something there. And it was Thanksgiving Day, and usually trees are pretty much bare, but we had warm season, warm fall this year. Fall was very late, and these trees were still holding approximately half of their leaves. And so it adds some extra color to the overall painting. And because the scene's fairly flat, getting a 3D look is a little more difficult. So like I said, I did the detailing of shadows on the right of the window. The ledges also cast a faint shadow downward from the skylight, even though the sun's to the left. The awnings, the signage on the windows, on the storefronts, they all have some indication of shading. So that's added in towards the end. There's shading in all the doorways, and there's several. The synergy awning is picking up a streak of sunlight, but there's shading below that awning. And then there's shading to the very left that you can barely make out in the video. There's an alley there and a brick building across the way, so there's some shading there. The trees, they're casting a very faint shadow onto the buildings, and so that was added in, and that created a nice depth in here. Also, the shading within the windows itself, because the sun's coming from the extreme left, there's like a dark shading on the left of the window, in the upper portion of the crown of the window. And those are minor, but they're important. When the viewer looks at it, their brain just picks up on these things and they see the depth. Here's a final view of the painting as I pan across everything. You can see that shading I was talking about behind the trees. There's the awning and synergy, all the indications in those storefronts of what they sell. I hope you enjoyed this painting, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.